All right, guys, so we're going to do another Q&A episode. So I did a Q&A on Instagram. We got a bunch of new questions for everybody. And take it away, Garrett. What's the first one?
Why are crocs so much more explosive than gators?
Yeah, so that's one of the big ones. You'll see people constantly like, oh, the crocs are more aggressive, which some species can be for sure. It depends what kind we're talking about. So I always like to preface any gator versus croc conversation with the idea that like gator versus croc, you really need to know what kind of croc you're talking about because it's literally the difference between American crocodiles in Florida have never caused a single fatality in the history of the state of Florida versus Nile crocodiles that eat about 300 humans a year. Totally different kinds of crocs. So I always like to preface that. But anyways, to get back to the original question there. So why are the crocs, there's a lot of mosquitoes today too. You're going to see me smacking nonstop. Why are the crocs more explosive in their behavior and whatnot? So I think a lot of that has to do with their hunting style. So alligators will typically hunt by sitting with their mouth open in the water like this and just literally sitting there and waiting for fish to come by and bump in, and then they snatch up the fish. So that's something they love to do a lot. They'll do that same kind of thing. Just kind of hanging out with their mouth open like a statue kind of deal. You know, most of their prey, they're going to be able to snatch up like that, either fish underwater or when they're hunting along the surface. It is usually, let's say, less than agile prey compared to something like a Nile croc. We're going to use them as our croc example here just because that is one of the gnarliest species. So as a Nile crocodile, you are ambushing things like wildebeest, zebra, large mammals that are very fast at the water's edge. So you have to be way more explosive lunging out to be able to grab those. So those hunting strategies, I think, is a big example and a big difference of why the crocs are that much more explosive and fast and good at that behavior. They have to be to survive in their environment. Meanwhile, for an alligator, you know, you're eating a lot of fish that's sitting here chilling like this, eating a lot of turtles, not like that's exactly the fastest thing in the world, you know, so they get away with not having to put as much effort. Man, the mosquitoes are bad today too, guys. So I would say that's one. And then something I was talking about earlier today that I just want to put into that too, the nictitating membrane. So in an alligator, their nictitating membrane is a lot more opaque and they cannot see anywhere near as well underwater when they have their membrane up. Meanwhile, Nile crocodile membranes are a lot thinner and a lot more transparent for them to be able to see well from underwater with, which is pretty darn cool. Bella giving us a little hiss here. Anyways, what was the next question we got?
What do these crocodiles see you as?
Big Mac. Big Mac's over there. He's slowly making his way over here. Big Mac. Here, you want to cut for a sec? Okay, so what do these guys see me as? That's a very, very common question, which is voiced in different ways, but it's always like, do they see you as another alligator or crocodile? Do they see you as a caretaker? Do they see you as a friend? You know, et cetera, et cetera. Keep in mind that these are all boxes that humans create to categorize how they interact with their environment. These guys are not thinking like that. You know, they're not thinking about like trying to categorize different things in their environment in the same way. Now they do. So trying to think of the right way to explain this. We put a lot of ideas onto animals that they don't have. So like one would be like, oh, well, does he see you as his protector? They don't have that. That's not a thing for them. That's a question. That's not what this question was, but that is an associated question. A lot of people do ask, will he see you as his protector? A protector is not anything that exists inside of their world. You know, I mean, all they have is when they're little tiny babies, the mother will protect them. But that's the mother. That's different, you know? So like for me, like as their protector, that doesn't exist. That's not a thing, you know? Do they see me as their friend? Definitely not. And do they even see each other as friends would be the next question, you know? Which I would argue that I think that they do have kind of rough friends. You know, that I've definitely seen some that definitely don't like each other, and I've seen others that do tolerate each other more than others. You know, so I would say they have friends. So anyways, though, what do they see me as? It's hard to say because we don't know what kind of categories that they are exactly analyzing their environment with, you know? So I would say, they definitely see me as a food source, that's for sure. I am potential prey. That's also 100% one of the categories. Even when they're being nice and chill like this, at all times, and I do mean at all times, I am still potential prey for them. You know, so if something were to go wrong right now, if a branch fell and hit me in the head, even if I didn't fall forward, if I just fell on the ground next to them, they're immediately going to be like, and then they're going to move in and try to eat me, you know? So like they definitely see me as potential prey. But they know right now I'm able to defend myself. There's nothing wrong with me. So they're not going to try me right now. But yeah, so they see you as potential food. They see me as something that brings them the food. And they also know that I'm not a threat to them based on our past interactions. They've learned that. So they don't see me as a threat. So it's usually like, are you food? Are you a threat? Are you a potential mate? You know, those are usually the basic categories most animals would have. But again, a lot of people make up human categories that we come up with that don't exist in an animal's mind, you know? I think that answers that one. What's the next one?
Next question is, what animal would you be extremely worried about coming across in the wild?
Oh, come here.
He heard my voice.
Yeah, he's seeing that movement over there.
Trying to hold the camera still, but holy cow, the mosquitoes are bad today.
Yeah, mosquitoes are gnarly. What's an animal I would be nervous to come across in the wild? So what this really depends on is the situation. That's really it, you know? So are you in a good situation or a bad situation? I mean, you can be nervous to come across something as simple as a pig, a wild boar. That is a dangerous animal, honestly, especially if you're in a bad situation. Am I nervous to come across a great white shark? Well, no, not if I'm on the beach in the sand and it's in the water. You know, a lot of this stuff is what is the situation? Am I nervous to come across a 15-foot alligator? Sure, I definitely would be if I was in the water with it, but not if I'm up on the bank and I see it swimming over there. I'm not nervous at all. You know, so all this stuff really comes down to situational. But what animal would I be nervous about in any situation? Hippos. Okay. I was in Botswana to see Nile crocodiles and dive with them. And so both on land, in the boat, and when I was in the water, at all times, hippos were a very scary, scary thought. So that is an animal. It doesn't matter what situation you're in. Hippo is a potential deadly threat to you as a human. Any kind of large predatory cat definitely is up there. You know, no matter the situation, pretty much any large predatory cat is big enough to see you as prey. Jaguars, lions, tigers, all that stuff. Encountering any one of those in the wild in any situation would definitely be nerve-wracking. Again, depends on situation. Most shark species, it's very situational. So if you're in a clear water, not struggling bait, anything like that, most sharks, really not much of a problem, you know. But if you're in murky water with struggling bait fish around or you're injured, yeah, that could be a big problem. So again, very situational, but definitely like things like hippos, big cats, that kind of stuff, bears, something like a polar bear.
That might be top of my list. Is it like a grizzly bear or something like that?
Yeah.
A mother grizzly bear? And that is up there on my list.
You have a mosquito right here, man.
I do?
Right on your forehead. Yep, big one. Yeah. But yeah, bears like that, definitely high on the list too. Okay. He's like, what about me? What about me? What's the next one?
Can alligators still see well in murky water?
That's why I started talking about the nictitating membrane earlier. We wrote these down beforehand, and then I was like, was this one of the questions? And that's why it's fresh in my brain. So, okay. To go back to that, the nictitating membrane. So if you don't know what we're talking about, when they go under the water or whenever something touches near their eye, you're not gonna be able to see it on camera anyways, but
when they come around over here with her?
Yeah, we could do that because he's gonna be a little, more reactive.
Getting very reactive now.
But, so if I touch the stick near her eye, if you watch close at the eye, see that thing go sideways? So that's the nictitating membrane that goes sideways right there. That's a good example of it. Do not be nice to each other. Come on, Big Mac. There you go. Anyways, so that nictitating membrane comes up sideways across the eye. And so when they go underneath the water, they'll put that up to protect the eye. They also put it up whenever anything touches near the eye. They also put it up whenever they bite prey. So again, to protect the eye. So with an alligator, it's pretty thick and it's pretty opaque. So when they're underneath the water, they put that thing up. They really cannot see very well underwater with that up. They can see a little bit, you know, but it's really not that well. So underwater, they really rely much more on their sense of touch. And that's using these little black dots, the integumentary sensory organs around the face. That's what they're really going to use when they're underneath the water for the most part. You got to imagine most of the time when they're in the water, it's very murky water. There is no reason to be able to see through that membrane in the first place because you can't see anything anyways. Even if you have perfectly clear vision, you can't see through coffee water, you know, and that's what most of the water in the wild is. So it's not advantageous for them to have that. Now with the Nile crocs, theirs is way more clear, way more visible for them when they have theirs up. And the reason why, they also are in murky water though a lot of the time. So why is theirs more visible than an alligator's? So I would think that's because they are trying to hunt fast prey that is coming down to the water's edge to drink, and they will be just a few inches below the surface in that murky water. And they hit that sweet spot where they are still obscured by the murky water and they're hard to see by the prey, but they can see, they're looking up through those couple inches, and through that they can see the shadow of the prey they're hunting and know when to lunge out and strike. So I think that's why theirs is a lot more see-through than an alligator's. Meanwhile, for an alligator hunting underwater, it's just sitting still and relying on touch, not on vision, so they don't need to have a very see-through nictitating membrane. That's a really, really cool difference between the two.
Next question is, do alligators have a tongue? And this goes for alligators and crocodiles, I would assume.
Yes, yes. So they do. Both of them do have a tongue, but it is fixed to the bottom of the mouth. You know, when you stick your tongue up and you have the line down the middle that attaches it at the base, right? But you have this section that you can stick out. Imagine if that line in the middle went the whole way. That's what theirs is. So theirs is stuck to the bottom, so they cannot stick their tongue out. But, you know, let me show you. La, there it is. La 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 la. La 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 la. That's it right there. You see that thing wiggling around in there. So they do have a very muscular tongue, and they do use it to manipulate food inside of their mouth for sure. It's really, really cool. But they cannot stick it out of their mouth like you can. But it is big and it is muscular, and they definitely use it. So it's actually a common myth they don't have a tongue at all. But yeah, there it is.
Why do you think they can't stick it out of their mouth?
I think maybe it's because they would end up biting it off too much, you know, especially with like struggling prey and like with that much jaw pressure and, you know, obviously crushing. I think maybe it's just, you know, it ends up getting lopped off if you could.
Next question is, what will you do if you can no longer support bellowing acres?
Start OnlyFans. That's probably the plan. No. So well, here's the beauty, guys. I have not been personally supporting Bellowing Acres financially for, I think, since like the beginning of the year or so. So in the beginning, so just to give you guys an idea, you know, I spent the last 20 years down in South Florida doing gator wrestling and doing tours and this and that, and just saving up my money with this ultimate goal in mind. Once I had my savings, then I decided, you know, pull the trigger, made the jump, moved 6 hours away, bought a 40-acre property and started building this whole animal sanctuary out of my pocket. So I built the whole first year, the whole beginning of it, I paid for out of my pocket, out of my life savings, put all that into this. And then we really started to, we had a nonprofit already down south. We were doing more rescue cases though. So we weren't doing big fundraisers. We were doing like, this animal has to go to the vet for this rescue. And then we would take in an animal, fix it up, and then adopt it out because we were renting a house down there. But then the idea of a sanctuary is to be able to give a permanent home to animals that need it, not having a revolving door, but a permanent home. So then we're fundraising for big projects and then also changing our fundraising tactic to continue to do fundraising all the time. And, you know, obviously then we have like monthly donors. We have donors who do big donations and whatnot. So it's really awesome. A very persistent mosquito, sorry.
Yeah. I'm getting destroyed over here.
Yeah, so now we're actually able to, Bellowing Acres as the nonprofit sanctuary has been able to fund itself this whole year so far without me having to pay out of pocket for it. So that's an amazing thing for me for many reasons. For one, it's obviously great to not have to pay for things out of my life savings anymore, especially now that I'm not making then enough money to pay for it, you know? The whole thing is when I was down south, I was kicking butt down there, guys. I had like multiple different jobs. I was making good money. I was very well off. Well, by my standards, not really well. I wasn't a millionaire or anything like that, but I was doing very well for myself down there. But up here, I only make my money through social media and I basically make enough to get by. So if I did have to pay for the sanctuary out of pocket, it would dry up pretty fast because it would just be my savings. I'm not generating enough income anymore for my pocket, but the nonprofit is making more than enough to sustain itself and sustain expansion, which is what's amazing. So I guess to get back to the original question, it's now its own thing. You know, like the nonprofit is a functioning entity now that I don't have to put my own money into, just my own time, of course, and my own work and labor, but not my own finances. So that's really, really nice. Now, anyways, if let's say, you know, things took a horrible turn for the worst, and the nonprofit wasn't able to function for, you know, whatever. I can't imagine a scenario where this would happen, but let's say it did. We would obviously try to work with other sanctuaries, and we would rehome all the animals to other sanctuaries, and you know that would be the responsible thing to do. But I don't imagine that at this point ever, you know, becoming a reality. Knock on wood.
Next question is, have you ever worked with orcas?
So I've never worked with orcas, but I did do a trip to Norway, which was amazing. I went up to Norway in Angelus, and I got to dive with an orca up there. So they go up there chasing the herring, and you time it the right time. There's like a couple hours of daylight each day. Daylight, it's like, it's just dusk. It's either full black or it's like dusk. There's never like light like this at that time of year, but that's when the orcas are up there for the fish. So in this specific time of year, you get up there and you can actually see the orcas. But when I went up there, we ended up getting snowed in almost the entire time. And like, as a tour operator myself for many years, I can tell when a tour operator, like, man, they just don't want to do their job. So like, we were getting snowed in. The weather was bad, but it wasn't that bad. And the guy's like, guys, the weather's too bad, we can't go. And I'm like, hey, this is the last day, all right? We didn't go out like all week because we got snowed in. And on the last day, I'm like, no, we're going. He's like, oh no, it's not that bad. And I'm like, I paid for this trip out of my pocket. I paid thousands of dollars to be here. I'm a tour operator myself. You don't know me, but I work with animals. I know weather as well. And like, I know you just don't want to go. And kind of had like a little face-to-face with the dude, and we went. And we were fine. And it literally was him he just didn't want to deal with it. Because there was some snow, but it wasn't that bad. But we're in the boat, we're going along. I'm literally wiping ice off of my mask and then just dip off into the water. And I got to see an orca underwater and got one decent photo of that orca as it swam by underwater. So that was amazing for me. But no, I never worked with any, but that was really, really cool for me.
Next question is, does Angelus display any hybrid vigor like Nessie?
So that's somebody paying attention right there. So Nessie displays hybrid vigor. So hybrid vigor is where you have two animals that hybridize, and the offspring can be stronger than either respective parent. So think of like a mule, you know, so a mule is stronger than a donkey or a horse. So that's an example. A liger is an example. So a liger happens when you have a lion and a tiger. When they breed, the offspring is called, well, you can either have a tigon or a liger. And if you have the liger, you get the growth inhibiting hormone gets like canceled out. So it gets supersized. But in the opposite, in the tigon, it'll get doubled down on the growth inhibitor and it'll become super small and never even make it to adulthood. So, and it'll die. So hybrids, a lot of times, don't survive, or the hybrid itself can be sterile. Ugh, messing up my words. Anyway, so there can be all kinds of issues there. And hybridization can be a very weird thing. It is not always good for the offspring, but every once in a while you get one, depending on what is hybridizing and what species is the male and what species is the female, can also really influence this. But with Nessie is stronger, I think, than any crocodilian I've ever handled, like pound for pound. When I had to catch her, she was stronger than Talia, the pure saltwater crocodile, who's like a good 2 feet bigger than her. So like very, very strong animal. Now, hybrid vigor doesn't always happen though. It's not like it's a rule that it has to happen. Like I just said, it can often be a hindrance to the offspring. So in the case of Angelus, I speculate that he's a Nile-Cuban hybrid. I don't see any signs of any hybrid vigor or him being like bigger, better, stronger in any way so far. So I don't know. I don't see any evidence of it so far.
Next question is, if a croc grabbed an arm, would it rip, drown, or go for the body?
So this all depends on why did it bite you, what's its motivation, and what steps do you do afterwards. So I did a what do you do if an alligator bites you video. Go to that video if you really want the real long answer, but I'll try to give you the shorter version of it just to answer the question. So why did it bite you? Did it bite you at a feeding response? Did it bite you predatory? Did it bite you defensively? If it bit you defensively, it's probably going to snap and let go because it's trying to get you to leave it alone. If it bit you predatory, there's a good chance it's going to drag you down to the bottom and try to drown you. If it bit you feeding response, there's a good chance it might take you down to try to drag you if you offer resistance. If you don't offer resistance, a lot of times they'll try to throw it back to swallow it whole. So again, depends on its motivation. Then also depends a lot on what you do. If you were to immediately start, depending on what the motivation of the animal is, dictates what you should have done in response. But if you start immediately hitting it and it was predatory, sometimes it'll let you go because it wasn't sure what you were and it was more investigatory. It was more investigatoring. If it was feeding response and you hit it, it's probably going to try to run away with you and then drown you. Or it might go straight into a death roll on that front if it was feeding response more. So yeah, it totally depends. There's so many different variables there, and it's not just a simple this. You know, like there's so many different ways that could go, but yeah, a lot of it has to do, again, the animal's motivation, and your response after is going to dictate what he's going to do. If you want the full breakdown of every different way that that could go, check out the long video because I go on for like 45 minutes of breaking this down properly.
Last two questions. The first one is, why does Stallone lift up his tail?
So Stallone is very defensive, right? So he is definitely like, he wants to eat me, but he's also afraid of me. And I've had to catch him to move him only a few months ago. So he's still a little leery of that too. So with him, when I go to move him out of the way, he will lift his tail up, and lifting the tail is readying to be able to whip you with the tail. Now, when they do a tail whip, that is strictly defensive. I have never had an alligator try to whip me with his tail as an offensive move. It is strictly a defensive move for them. So when I'm trying to move him and he's at the door, he's getting defensive with me, and that's why he lifts his tail up to be able to swing it like that.
The last question is, have you started training Stallone? Watching you chase him is scary.
Watching him chase me.
Chase you.
Yeah. So we are purposefully having Stallone do that chase behavior. I've said this from the start with him. I want that behavior because it is a great example of why you shouldn't feed alligators. Because when people see this, they think they're tame and they're domesticated. Is all I hear all day in my comments. When I do a video with one of these guys who's well-trained, it's tame, it's domesticated, it's a puppy, it's a cream puff, it won't hurt you, all this different kind of stuff. And then it makes people not respect these animals and think that they could just feed a wild one because I saw this video and it didn't do anything when this guy fed it. So that's why I want to keep one not trained on purpose and keep one that is scary on purpose to show people, hey, this is what happens if you know what you're doing. And I've been handling gators for 20 years. I know how to do this. I know how to train this animal. And this is the result that can happen through skill and experience. And that thing where it chases you is a result of somebody either not knowing or choosing, in my case, not to do any training with him whatsoever. So we can exemplify that chase behavior and show how dangerous it is to try to feed these guys or try to interact with them if you don't know what you're doing. So that's why I am choosing purposefully to keep that behavior, and I'm not going to train it out to keep him as the example of the bad boy. So that's all of them, guys. Thank you so much, everybody who put in a question. Again, these are taken off of my Instagram. So on Instagram, when I do an Ask Me a Question thing, that's what we're reading off of. You can also leave a comment on YouTube and let me know any other questions you think I should address in the next one, and I'll try to write it down if I see it. Let me know what you guys think. Hopefully you liked the video, and thanks for watching.